Welcome to this post-election edition of Latino Loud podcast. I'm Joe Garcia, Executive Director of Chicanos por la Causa Action Fund. And to my right, we have Lydia Guzmán, also part of the advocacy team. Tony Moya, also part, and joining us remotely from the great state of Nevada, the city of Las Vegas, is Rudy Zamora. Thank you, Rudy.
Latino Loud.
Brought to you by Cisa Vota, Chicanos por la Causa Action Fund. So this is kind of a full circle for us. We started many months ago, and here we are now after the election. We're going to be talking about, what impact Latino Loud had on getting out the vote for Latinos, for reaching out to a community, hopefully not only engaging them, but educating them and helping them through the electoral process, many for the first time, and just kind of what we did and, where we're at with it and where we're moving forward in the future. So first of all, Lydia, we'll talk with you. You've had so much experience you brought with you on this campaign. You previously worked for the Arizona Secretary of State's office. You've been a Latina leader for many years, including when it comes to voter registrations and so forth. What was your experience with Latino Loud, and what do you think we achieved?
So what my experience is, with each and every election cycle, there's always new technology. There's always new ways that we do things when we talk to the voters or when we reach the voters. I'm still very old school, and I like talking to the voters face to face. And one of the things that I really enjoyed, and this was my experience, is that nothing can replace a lot of those one-on-one conversations. And I think that's, what really made a difference. In talking to some of the voters, I know what we did with 2022, I was able to very lightly, we didn't do it at the same level, but in talking to some of the folks saying, they said to me, "You're the first one that has ever reached out to me or talked to me." And these are folks that we talked to that have been registered to vote. And I thought that was very impactful. So my experience was that we need to continue to do this. We need to continue to have those basic conversations about the issues, about, just reaching out to folks that, that need to be spoken to, that need to be talked to.
Yeah, and we certainly all got out there. Everyone on this team that you're looking at today, we were out there evenings, weekends, different events. We all kind of shared the experience, and it was painful only because sometimes it was hot. It was very hot sometimes, but it didn't matter because we were with where people were at. That could be musical concerts, it could be festivals, it could be football games, whatever it may be. We were out there. Tony, you've been a Latino leader for a lot of years as well. You brought a lot of wealth of experience and ideas and energy to this campaign. Get out the vote as well. What did you feel like you've taken away, or what did we provide Latino leaders and Latino voters who might not have gotten that otherwise?
Thanks, Joe. I think what my experience has been, to Lydia's point, is that that one-on-one conversation with our Latino community, especially the Spanish-speaking community, it's very key, and it's very important to the success of Latino Loud. But also, I think Latino Loud was very aware of the new technologies that were out there. I have numbers later that we're going to go through about our social media impact and that we had, which skewed to the younger audience, which I think are key and very important. And we were out, let's say, about over 20 events. And when I say 20 events, it may not sound like a lot, but those events were all over the state of Arizona. I know Rudy can talk about Nevada, but they were small events, intimate events where we could be asked these questions. And again, my experience, especially with the Spanish-speaking community, is that there is someone there who can speak their language and answer their questions in their language. And all these questions they've had, we could answer them, and we could guide them in the direction. And I think, again, our presence throughout the state of Arizona was great. And I think coming away with that, the thing is that you talked about what's next, Joe. I think what I see if I were to be a person who make these decisions. Education, education, education. We have a lot of new voters or voters that probably voted once before, and they're still new to the process. I think there's a lot of opportunity between now and 2026, is it? Lots of room for education on ballots, and we were trying to do that, and the proper way to fill out a ballot, where to go. I just think there's still so much more we can do. And I think the way we communicate to our audiences is what our advantage is.
Yeah, that's so important. And I'm glad you brought it up, was education, education, education. Because we don't gain anything if we send Latinos to the polls and they never voted before and they have no idea what they're voting for, what these offices do, what are the issues. I mean, we have done nobody any favors. So it's right. And there's two levels of education. One is just maneuvering through the ballot and understanding the voting process and mailing it in and making sure you do everything, dot all the I's and cross all the T's, do it right so your vote counts. And then there's that other level of understanding, again, what your vote stands for and what these offices do and what are some of the key issues. So, yeah, it's really important, and that's certainly something we have to continue to do. So, it's registration, it's engagement, it's education, and it's activation to make sure that people do vote. And obviously, we were this iteration of Latino Loud. We included Nevada, the great state of Nevada, and in 2024, Nevada, Latinos made up 21% of the electorate, and that's up from 17% 4 years ago. And Rudy, you have been a big part of that, as other leaders and Latino groups up there. What was your? You live in the great state of Nevada. What was your take on Latino Loud and the impact it had on Nevada and reaching out to the Latino community?
Yeah, Joe, like Lydia and Tony have mentioned, it's been the same thing in Nevada, so in Arizona. We have the opportunity to engage people in a smaller scale, intimate events, larger events. I'm a team of one out here in Nevada. We have a CPOC team, and we have volunteers that have been out here with me doing that education. Like Tony mentioned, I think moving forward is going to be education, education, education. In particular, we see young voters, and one of the things that we saw this election was curing of the ballots. Young people need to understand that a signature is a signature and that we can't just change it every other day. So we need to educate folks on signatures, something as simple as signature, all the way to making sure that people are on the ballot and voting in every single race.
Yeah, and carrying the ballots is important, that you fill everything out. But we also had a big emphasis on early voting. We wanted people to vote early. So, we heard about the long lines on election day. We know they were there. I mean, avoid the lines. You can vote by mail and take your time over a couple days if you want, and you mail it. You don't have to deal with all these other problems. So early voting data that we've got shows that there was an increase in Latino voter participation, both in Arizona and Nevada, but also in the turnout and in turning in the early balloting, I think, which is important. And we were managing two different states with two different sets of election laws. Here in Arizona, we had such a big push to get people to register to vote 29 days before the election, 29 days before November 5th. So that was so important. Whereas in Nevada, Rudy, you guys are ahead of us. You guys have same-day voter registration, and we are jealous here in Arizona of that. Where if you feel like voting and you want to get registered to vote, you can do it any day leading up to the election. Correct?
That's right.
And that makes all the difference. So for us, maneuvering through the two sets of states, we were able to do that. Rudy was able to use his expertise, obviously in Nevada. He's plugged in. We were able to use ours here. And we visit each other's states. We've gone to each other's to help each other out. So Latino Loud really was about getting Latinos to participate in both states. Now, we had an earlier podcast that hopefully you can watch, talks about what the impact is for the Latino vote on the election, on the outcomes. But you know what? if you can separate yourself from the politics and the partisanship, what we are building is a Latino political empowerment where the Latino voice and the Latino vote is going to be courted by both parties. We can no longer be overlooked by both parties. So I think that in itself plays into our goal of political empowerment.
I agree 100%. I think one of the takeaways that I have from this election is that the Latino vote can no longer be a vote to be taken for granted. And this is a vote that both parties and candidates need to pay attention to. They need to court. They need to address our issues. And I think, this might actually be what changes a lot of the narrative in the way that that our issues are going to be addressed. And I think it, it's going to place us at an advantage where we're going to actually have to have a sit down with all the different entities to talk about the issues. Our issues are important. Our issues are the same issues that are important to every American: the economy, education, housing, healthcare, reproductive rights. All of those issues are important to Latinos, and more specifically when it talks about equality. And so in having both the parties, having the candidates look at us as a force to be reckoned with, we now are able to flex our political muscle in the upcoming elections, because we have shown that we're not a group to be taken for granted. And I think that is my takeaway from this.
Absolutely, Lydia. And, in the past, you've always assumed, or the assumption was made, that the Latino community is a monolith and we all voted a certain way. The numbers are still coming in, but, there were shifts in the Latino population and how they voted and who they voted for and who they didn't vote for. Even here in Arizona, there's cities and counties where there was a huge shift one way or the other for both parties. And I think what we do here with Latino Loud, obviously, is we create that new voter. We motivate that new voter to become part of the process. Now, the parties need to pay closer attention to these brand new voters, what all that means, not only the brand new voters, but the existing voters, and really get in there. And I hate to use the word deep dive, but deep dive into those communities, because this upended a lot of people's ideas of how the Latino community votes. And I still believe that 2026, the Latino community is still up for grabs one way or the other. You can learn from your mistakes and hopefully improve upon them. But right now, I see, to your point, Lydia, that Latino community is up for grabs. Mm-hmm. And now hopefully they're going to pay attention. Not only will the voter pay attention, but I think the parties as they exist need to pay closer attention to what this turned out to be those what I call bread and butter issues. 100%. The cost of gas, the cost of eggs, the cost of whatever. I think that was probably missed. And I don't think it was missed by one party in particular. It just swung in another party's favor. But I still believe there's a lot of research that needs to be done.
Yeah, and you think of our targeted audience, which is low propensity voters. And these are people that are voting for the first time or the first time in a long time. It's going to be a different equation for candidates and campaigns to reach these voters. They're different than their parents, especially if they're younger.
Right.
They're very different, and they don't have the political loyalty when it comes to party. In fact, we saw, and it's anecdotal, but we did see, and I think the data will support it as numbers come out. Many young Latinos are voting no party preference. Mm-hmm. They may see that the two-party system actually is part of the problem on polarization and so forth. So the message cannot be strictly along always party lines and expectation that people are going to stick to party, because that's not the way I think the new Latino electorate, if you want to call it that, views the world. It's very different.
Right.
Rudy, do you want to add anything on that? Are Nevada Latino voters different from Arizona Latino voters? Is there a big difference? Or is it a simple matter of maybe the industry's there as opposed to the industry's here? What do you think?
But I think we saw similar issues in Nevada as you did in Arizona. We saw young people that are interested in being first-time home buyers, and the economy was a thing that they were focusing on. And again, like Tony was mentioning, it's the things that are important to community, making sure that they can put groceries on the table, healthcare, and things that are going to impact their life on a day to day. And as Lydia had mentioned too, the Latino food is not that it's not going to one party anymore. People need to start looking at our issues and our concerns more and more. And we see that here in Nevada, where we see people from the sheriff's office up all the way to the top of the ticket, asking the Latino community what they want to hear. And we're taking that into account when we're going out into the polls and casting our votes.
And I think what's also important here, Joe, is that this community is young, and it's going to be around for a long time, and it continues to grow. So we're going to have to be part of that national conversation, not only that national conversation, but the local conversations as well, much more than we were, or much more than what we have been. So I think we're at that place, where that giant has awakened. The giant has awakened, but now this giant has very different wants and needs all over.
It's a young giant.
Yes.
And the young giant is growing.
Yes.
With every election.
Absolutely.
Every election,
it is
18-year-old registered to vote, hopefully.
Absolutely. And evidence of that is a conversation. I just want to share this experience. I had a young fella who came up to me and he says, well, do you have any information? And I thought he was referring to maybe, do I have a flyer or do I have something that so he wanted a QR code. Luckily, we had, posters with QR codes. And when I saw him pull out his phone, he says, where can I get more information? He was actually looking for a QR code so that he can visit. And that to me says, oh, this is the new way it's going to be now. And it changes things. It really does change things, that those are the folks that we are talking to. Those are the folks that we need to be talking to, because they're the ones that are actually are making those decisions. And so we need to meet them where they are.
Yeah. And I don't want to overtake this conversation, but I think it's perfect timing to talk about how we talked about going out to the communities, right? But now how we Latino Loud utilize social media to our advantage. Latino Loud did purchase ads online, and the total impressions from Meta and Google were 15.5 million impressions. That's a loud, big number, yes. Right? A very Latino Loud number.
I'm impressed.
Me too.
Yes.
You see what I did there?
I saw that.
Good.
And so, but what also was important is that a lot of these were just organic. People were wanting, to your point, more information. And a number of those not only went to our ads, but they did a click through, which means they visited our Latino Loud website, which is very key and very important, because on that website was a lot of valuable information, voting information for your different states, some on initiatives, those types of things. So that was very key and very important. But what I found fascinating about all this data was, here are the top cities that actually visited Latino Loud. They were Las Vegas, which was our emphasis.
Las Vegas.
Phoenix, which was another focus point for us. Sacramento, Little Reno, and San Francisco. Those were the top cities that were interested in the Latino Loud website and our ads. So we had impact not only in our two focus, which I'm glad that our two focuses were the largest, but outside of that, those are states where Chicanos por la Causa, our C3, is in those different states. So we did have impact outside of Arizona, and quite a big impact. And I think given the going into next year, into the next cycle, we can have even a larger impact now that we know what they want and what they're hearing.
Right. And another experience that I want to just share is, we also, spoke with, some elderly folks, and these are the folks that sometimes just by chance that we come across. And we had a telethon at one of the Spanish-speaking
Right.
networks. And in this telethon, I remember there was a couple, both of them were in their 70s. They were Spanish-speaking, and both of them were registering to vote over the phone online with us. And so as we were taking this information, the wife, of course, was saying to the husband, bring out your information because we're going to register to vote. And I can hear her excitement, them being U.S. citizens in their 70s, voting for the first time. That was powerful. And it was actually emotional.
Yeah.
Because this is something that they wanted to do. And I didn't ask them how long they had been a citizen or if they were U.S. born citizens, but I do know that this was the first time that they were voting, and they were emotional, which made me in turn very emotional.
And I was there and I saw that and I agree. But what was also important of that telethon, Lydia, if you remember, when the phones opened, nonstop, they had to cut off the phones because there was such a great need. And that's what I talk about, that need for education, just that people are listening and hearing them. I think, again, that's another thing that moving forward we can focus in on.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and we reached out where we thought voters were. We had an extensive texting program. We did some phone banks calling. We did mailers as well. We did just about anything we could. Distributing the QR code was big because it did bring everyone to our website. As mentioned, we did whatever was needed. I mentioned how I got to go back to how hot it was this summer because it was hot.
Record heat.
It was.
And there we were.
It was like, it was like 113 F, and that F didn't stand for Fahrenheit. That's how hot
Fine.
it was.
Yes.
Fiery hot. That's what the F stands for. But we had to think, how do we best use our resources? How do we best reach people? And Lydia came up with a fantastic idea. And I'm going to give you the full credit on this one, although we all played a part in doing it, although some more than others. Mm-hmm. But we had these little table tent cards that would go on tables, and they talked about Latino Loud. It had the logo, and it had the QR code, and had the URL, the web address, and so forth on both sides, either side. And Lydia got the idea of like, you know what? What if we cut this in half, get a basically a giant popsicle stick, glue it on there, and boom, instant fan. I should have brought one. Instant fan. And those things were a hit.
They were like hot tamales.
Because it was so hot out there. People were like, yes. So I happened to be at the this Mesa event on El Grito. So it was September 16th, I believe. Mm-hmm. And I just walked through with a box full of these fans. People were grabbing them, and then looking around, and the whole audience waving the Latino Loud fan. Mm-hmm. So, thank you for that brilliant idea.
That was great. I think in the moment of necessity, and I think that was the single mom of me that came out that says, how can we make something out of, what we have? And we had that. And I thought it was a perfect idea, the perfect solution. We went to several events. I remember going to the Peoria Hispanic Heritage event. It was 117 degrees that Saturday. And that event, we took several hundred, because we made several hundred of these. Okay. But we took several hundred of these over to that event, and they went like hotcakes because it was so hot. And looking in the crowd, it was amazing. I was really proud to see everybody have this Latino Loud fan. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. We had a lot of t-shirts, Latino Loud t-shirts. We gave away. I'm wearing one right now, actually. I'm not going to do the whole strip
unveiling.
I'm not doing the whole thing, but yeah, I mean, we had the t-shirts. There was a truck that we had here in Phoenix that did one of those wraps, and it was the Latino Loud colors, Latino Loud messaging, had the QR code, the URL, and so forth. Earl Wilcox, thank you for that great idea. Thank you for making that happen, finding the funding to make this happen. A lot of people pitched in to help this happen. We had some great funders. some foundations and some grant money that came in that believed in the nonpartisan process that we were pushing. So we didn't go for the partisan money because we couldn't, and that's not what we're about. We're about nonpartisan. Mm-hmm. And that money's harder to come by in partisan politics world that we live in. But a lot of groups stepped up, a lot of good ideas. There was a lot of community events. I know, Rudy, in Las Vegas, you had a couple of great events, including there at the CPLC offices in Las Vegas, and also at the East Las Vegas Library. You had face paintings. We've had tacos. We've had hot dogs. We've done whatever we could to bring people in. Mariachis, music, events, rallies. We did everything we could to reach out where people were, either on their phones or in person. But tell us a little bit about the Las Vegas event, the one with the face painting one. And did you get your face painted?
I did not, Joe, but you bring up a really good point. Latino Loud went where people were. We met community where the community was. And in Nevada, we had the opportunity to partner up with a couple of different organizations to do Get Out the Vote events. We had where we included culture, food, and family activities to incorporate the whole family, because voting is not just an individual thing; it's a family event. We saw families coming out together to cast the ballot with their newly 18-year-old, abuelitas and abuelitos coming out to cast their ballot with their kids. But what we did was we encouraged people to come out to these events where we had tacos, face painting, like you mentioned. We had kids getting their face painting while their parents were waiting in line to cast the ballot. So we made it family friendly and a way where we included culture, la cultura, because it's something that brings us together. Food, music, and community brings us together. So yeah, we were where the community was. We weren't expecting the community to come to us.
Yeah, and the idea is, it truly is about generational change. It is behavioral change. It is like turning a first time or an infrequent voter into a more frequent voter, and perhaps we hope into a permanent voter, one who votes all the time, where the little kids can look up to their parents or their aunt and uncle or whoever it may be and see that they're voting and say, oh, voting's important. I want to vote.
It's just a natural process.
Right, because that hasn't been there in years past. And there's a lot of reasons for it. One is we are a young population. Median age 26 for Latinos here in Arizona. For non-Latino whites, it's about 13 years older than that. So we're a young population, and some of the members of our older population that have been here, they've been here 30 years, but they may not have documentation. They weren't born here, so they're not eligible to vote. So it's about changing the expectation. So we're expected to vote. And I know one of the best events that we had was when we visited that school, Cartwright School District.
That's correct.
You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yes. And so the Cartwright School District opened their doors to us so that we can talk to the 8th grade scholars. And those students received a shirt that said future voter. The school district adopted that shirt to be a part of an accepted, uniform, part of the uniform. And so that way the students were allowed to wear this shirt as part of the, their school uniform. Yeah. But the kids, they received a lot of great information from us about what it means for their families to vote and why it's important for them when they turn of age to vote. We also had with us Secretary Fontes, Secretary of State of Arizona, Adrian Fontes, and he was a huge hit with the kids. He connected with them, he energized them, and he had that crowd going. And so one of the things that we hope to do in the future is to continue with this tradition, to go into the schools, because these future kids, these future voters are the ones that are going to be possibly doing what we're doing, maybe talking to other future voters. And I think this is the importance of this, because this is a cultural change. With what we did with Latino Loud, I think there's also that opportunity, because we had a lot of great partners that provided us with some with economic support, some with community support. But there's still that opportunity for even individuals to contribute, because this is going to be an ongoing discussion, and you can still contribute to Latino Loud future events or future activities. Am I not right?
Yes, you're right, and we hope to do that more. Obviously, funding is always the key, those T-shirts. Cost money to buy a T-shirt and print it. And we always have quality T-shirts. Everybody tells
Very
us
nice.
And they're
the
collectors.
most comfortable T-shirts. But the idea was that, imagine that you have to wear school uniforms all the time, and they kind of get boring. Everyone's wearing the same thing. But wow, that dude gets to wear a Latino Loud T-shirt, future voter. That's cool. I want to be cool next year. I want to be an 8th grader. I want to wear that T-shirt. You got to make it cool. And voting is cool. There's nothing more cool in our democracy than voting. So we want to do that, and hopefully we can if we can find the right funding and anybody contributes, greatly appreciated. But not just in election years. Mm-hmm. We want this to be evergreen, where Latino Loud continues, not just in election year, but always. We're registering and educating and engaging our community for greater political empowerment. So that's what it's about.
Mm-hmm. Joe, and I want to bring up one more data set. I'm not a data geek whatsoever, but I do love data. And I think we're going to find more and more data about Latino Loud and what we did. So we mentioned all the events we were all at, Dining in the Heat, turning 5 shades of red. I drank so much water. It was red. I was red. Yeah. But in our free time, all 4 of us, Joe was on many political shows. Lydia was doing TV. I was doing TV. Rudy was doing TV and radio in Las Vegas, Spanish, English. We did all that. And most of that was free for us. We were invited to speak. And we were able to reach almost 3 million viewers with our message, with what we were doing. But it was nonstop. We were all on message. We all had our talking points. And I think that's, again, how interested the community at large was interested in the voice of the Latino. And I think I would like, again, to see that continue. Spanish and English, we were often, again, asked to do those things. And radio, TV, some of us have faces for radio, but anyway, no, that's a joke. I think, again, that just credit to everyone across the board. We all made ourselves available to reach those 3 million viewers.
Right.
And Spanish language, real quick, excuse me, just the Spanish language is so important to fully reach our community. And Tony and Lydia have done a great job handling that task. My Spanish, it gets better with every shot of tequila. It becomes more fluid, or at least I think I'm more fluid. I think I'm speaking Spanish, but there's some shortfalls there. In believe it or not, I'm not perfect, but you two certainly have done a great job in reaching our Spanish language communities. Thank you.
Right, and it's also very helpful that some of our partners were with us to stand with us and also lended credibility to the work that we do, the nonpartisan work that we do. We had stand with us the Arizona Secretary of State as well as the Nevada Secretary of State during the launch of our campaigns, and basically it underscores that the mission of what we do. And the fact that, we're out there just to talk to the voters to make sure that they have a voice. And having partners like that, like both Secretaries of States or some of those national community organizations stand with us and say, we're here to make sure that you have a voice, was powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. And some of our other partners were Latino groups or voter groups. I mean, we partnered with Unidos US. We partnered with Mi Familia Vota. We partnered with Latino Victory Fund and Hispanic Federation and LULAC. And, all these groups that we partnered with, it benefits because we were going for the same goal, which is to, get greater Latino participation at the ballot box. So for us, it wasn't competition. And we're very happy about that. And I think we made some new friends and some new allies. And I think this sets us up for the next time, which really begins today. Let's face it, the 2026 election begins today, in reaching even more people. Because one disturbing thing that we saw was a survey kind of in the middle of the election cycle. Unidos US, that poll, you remember it, was in Arizona, 50% of Arizona Latinos had still not been contacted by a voter group, a political campaign, a political party, a candidate, nobody had contacted. Half of the Latino electorate in Arizona and Nevada, it was even a few points higher than that, Rudy. It was 52%. So, I mean, it just shows that we all still have a lot of ground to cover.
Mm-hmm.
I know it sounds like we're patting ourselves on the back because, we're all tired, we're all fatigued, but we felt like we did a good job. But we still know that the work is still out there. And, in Nevada, we're hoping the ripple effects are great. We keep telling people that if you register to vote, well, then become an ambassador to democracy. Get someone else to vote. Get someone in your family to vote, a friend, a colleague, a neighbor. Get them registered to vote. So it's all about that ripple effect, Rudy. And I know you think that's very important because you mentioned going out to the community and so forth. What we've seen and what we've done, I think, isn't just about it never has been just about this elections cycle. It's about all elections moving forward. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, I would agree. Joan, you mentioned a really good point of the Latino community not being reached out by campaigns or political parties. And Latino Loud did a really good job this year in making sure that Latino voters were contacted. Here in Nevada, we reached out to voters, low propensity voters and first-time voters and voters that haven't voted in a long time via phone calls, via mail pieces. And it was the first time that in Nevada, CPOC and Latino Loud have reached out to voters via mail.
Yeah, we had a very extensive mail campaign here in Arizona in 2022. 2024, we did some mailers up in Nevada. Very a little bit different campaigning depending on funding. So the states were a little bit different, but the idea was the same, and I think the result was the same. So we're happy. I think people know us, people trust us, and if anything else, I think the nonpartisan position that we have gives us credibility where people know they can turn to our website, learn about issues, learn about voting, and we're not trying to get them to vote for one candidate and the other. And sometimes we're criticized for that because partisan politics being what they are. But by and large, I think that there is certain respect that goes with that, or else we couldn't work with the Arizona Secretary of State's office. We couldn't work with the Nevada Secretary of State's office, right? And both have been guests on our Latino Loud podcast. I mean, it just shows you where the commitment are. I think our role in that nonpartisan lane is right where we want to be. I think so.
I believe that is the way to go. And, in the future, I look forward to having more participation from both secretaries of states as we move forward, because as you well stated, Joe, the 2026 election starts now. And again, I want to underscore that, if you would like to be a contributor, you can contribute. There's ways to contribute where people can contribute, every month, like monthly contributions, and that is so appreciated. It goes a long way, and we're able to do, we're able to try to stretch that as much as we can, but it does take some money to buy those T-shirts, to even to make those fans, with material that we had, but we still have to buy all those things, and so help us reach more folks so that we can grow the Latino vote, and we're hoping to count on contributions by individuals as well.
And you could do that on our website, latinoloud.vote.
You can donate on latinoloud.vote, right? I think we're showing right there that little button.
Yes.
It's green for a reason. It's green. Donate. The money all goes to advocacy and getting out the vote, protecting the vote, education, all this stuff. But you're right. Everything costs money. Even those fans, the glue guns. And I
Right.
said, well, can't you just lick it and stick it? And they said, no, Joe, we need to buy glue guns.
They fall apart, Joe, in the 125 degree
all
weather.
right, well, I guess
They did.
I guess we have to spend it. Rudy, looking at Nevada, is there any numbers that you want to share with us? Anything that jumps out at you that that kind of says, wow, of what we did?
So at Latino Loud, we were able to reach out to over 81,000 households in Nevada via mail pieces. We were able to make over 200,000 calls into areas here in Nevada. So those numbers are numbers that will normally not be reached out by a traditional campaign or political party. But I think going back to what Tony and Lydia and you were talking about contributions, I think that green sign on our Latino Loud.vote website is important. But it's also important to remind people that as much as financial contribution is important, we also need people to come help us put our political fix onto the fans, and volunteering to contribute to the Latino Law campaign.
Yeah, we did have some great volunteers. Among them were some CPLC staffers and CPLC friends. We had some groups, the Adelitas.
Correct.
And what was the other group?
So we had some Las Adelitas. We had some students also. Some of our they also came in and participated.
The scholars.
Yeah. We partnered with several community groups, but we even had one staffer help by taking some home and having their kids stake some of the stakes to the posters at home, and brought back bags of fans. And I thought that was amazing because they believe in it that much that they're saying we're going to get our kids involved this way at home. And that said a lot to me, that there is that level of commitment, not just from the advocacy group, but from our organization, the entire organization.
And I think, Joe, what's key again, you mentioned the nonpartisan. Because of our nonpartisan stance, we were able to put our Latino Loud information in some of our lobbies of a lot of the programs that we have throughout the state. And again, people were encouraged to vote, never telling them who to vote for, just to vote and be part of the process or register to vote. And again, being in the community that we know and that we serve.
Yeah, the training that was behind that was to make sure it remained nonpartisan. So training the trainers, if you will, training our front corporate receptionists, our staffers. So if they can register someone to vote, make sure they don't sound like they're influencing anybody one way or the other. It was one of the training sessions I went down to that Tony and Lydia did down in San Luis, which is just south of Yuma towards the Mexican border. And, they were so welcoming and so glad that somebody cared about them. And I think that's important, that we don't just say, oh, everything's Phoenix. We were down in Tucson for Tucson Meet Yourself, obviously, and we were, in many places as we could be. And I know that, in Rudy, Nevada, we reached out people, it wasn't always in person, but the mailers went out to many, many different addresses of all locations. So it was about going to where everybody was and letting them know we're here and we want you to be participating in our democracy. There is no greater privilege. And, hopefully we can go with that energy. I know elections are tough because there are winners and losers in every election. I've seen my fair share of elections, and I've had my heart broken and I've had my heart uplifted. And, I've had, disappointments and celebrations and so forth and so on. It happens with elections, but you vote. And every election, I get better. I've been voting since I was 18 years old.
Me too.
But I get better every election in terms of filling it out, understanding the offices, understanding the candidates and the campaigns, and just understanding the whole thing. You get better. It's like playing the guitar. When you first play the guitar, if you can make any noise at it, that's fine. That's voting. You don't have to vote for everything. And we made this a point for young voters. Don't feel like you have to fill everything out, because you don't. It's very intimidating. And one of the new voters that we got, if you remember Chris, we pressured him into voting for the first time, and he did. And he was so proud, and he thanked me for getting him to make himself get registered and to vote. He goes, but I didn't vote for everything. I didn't vote on everything. I said, it's okay. You didn't have to. And he goes, but I voted.
Baby step.
And he was so proud.
Yeah.
And he got his wife to vote too.
That's right.
And I bet you he's going to vote for the rest of his life. That's what this is about.
Right. And it doesn't matter who he voted for, but the mere fact that he voted, and the mere fact that now he was able to experience and see this was a painless process. And that's where the cultural change and the future, I think this paves the way for us to continue to make and strengthen our Latino vote with each and every election. We've seen the numbers. Each and every election, the Latino vote comes out bigger, stronger, and our voice is getting louder. And, wherever it is, again, this is a message. Both candidates, the candidates and the parties need to start looking at us as a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah, every election, if you feel one way or another, it doesn't end. Democracy doesn't end after election day. Your participation in elections and our democracy doesn't end because you cast a vote. Elections are just part of that process. So, we're looking at this election, it is what it is. On to the next election, on to hearing ourselves heard to make sure promises are kept or to keep bad ideas from happening. Or we still are Latino loud even though we're not voting. Mm-hmm. And we do this as an advocacy team. We do this in between elections. Democracy is also what happens in between election cycles. But without the vote, without being heard at the ballot box, it makes it so much more difficult in between elections. Mm-hmm. So if we're heard, Latino loud during elections, it's a lot easier to be heard in between elections.
Right. And if I can just share this is, I've shared this story before, but, and I repeat it every opportunity because I think it's worth underscoring the importance of what a voting block can do. Back in my early days of doing voter registration, back in the 80s, in early to mid 80s, there were
the 1980s.
Yes, the 1980s. And I had big hair with Aquanet and everything. But me and a couple of friends, we decided to register a lot of unhoused, homeless, populations. And we were trained that we can use like the soup kitchens and the shelters as their address, even though maybe some of them live underneath like a bridge or whatever. They still have the ability to vote. What we did is back then it was all with a paper card. So we showed the candidates. There were some candidates that were running for a local city council race, and we showed them that we registered a lot of folks to vote, and most of them were unhoused, they were homeless. And wouldn't you know it, by the time they were speaking, they were talking about issues to address housing. They were talking about substance abuse programs. They were talking about funding for the like Job Corps programs. They were talking about those programs because they saw, and these were some of those small communities where just a few votes can make a difference entering an election. This was a new voting block that they just suddenly opened their eyes to. And this is exactly what's happening with Latinos on a bigger scale, because our voting block continues to grow and grow, and our issues are suddenly starting to pay attention to our issues. We can swing either way, but our issues are the ones that are going to be important.
I agree. Well, we could talk all day on this because, we still are psyched, and you get an idea of the energy and the creativity and the commitment that this team had. And I could not be more proud than to work with everybody on this team and everybody at Chicanos por la Causa that also made this possible, that supported this, and the donors, that made this possible through their grants, and, even the volunteers, but the people in general that were so receptive to us, in understanding what we were trying to do. We weren't vacuum cleaner salesmen by any means. And a simple question could get answered very quickly. I can't tell you how many times I was asked the question of like, well, can I drop off the ballots from everyone in my family, or is that against the law? It's like, no, you can do it as long as it's your family. You can do that. Okay, good. I knew you know the answer, and they did.
Right.
But people want to vote and vote right, and that's what we want to do, is make sure people vote right, and that is vote correctly in terms of filling out the ballot, following the laws, following the deadlines, and making your vote count. So, Rudy, is there anything you want to say about Las Vegas or anyone else as we close up?
I think, as you mentioned, the Latino Law program is going to continue. We're going to be in the community, so we're not going to disappear and come back in 2026. We're going to continue to engage folks and continue to do that voter registration on the ground to become that trusted messenger that our community needs.
Yeah, thank you, Rudy. Tony, anything else?
Sure, I'll say
Final
something. Final thoughts, Joe. I too have been voting since I was 18, so that's over 40 years.
How old are you?
Yeah, I'm old. So here's the thing, the lessons learned over that time. Elections don't always go your way. And what you need to do at that point is just refocus, reevaluate, do some more work, and you might be able to have that impact to have the election go your way. I remain optimistic. I remain optimistic this community. I remain optimistic of the changes and the impact that this community will have, not only in our states, but all over the country. And I think the four here in this room have done a lot to help with that and continue with this program to reach that community, which, again, to Lydia's point, it's a force to be reckoned with. And so that's where my optimism is.
Lydia, any thoughts?
I'm truly optimistic as well. No matter what the election results were, whether you were for one candidate or the other, one thing that I can certainly say is, and especially with the holidays coming and the families coming together, this is a time for us to talk, because the passion was there on both sides from the candidates. And one thing for sure that we can all agree on is that we all participated because we're all part of this community, and we all love this country, and we all want to continue to have a voice in this country collectively. And I think if there's anything, I think this is a time for more unity and more discussion, and for us to come together and to just, evaluate how it is that we can start looking at the political muscle that we have and start using it so that we can have a stronger voice. My takeaway from this campaign with Latino Loud is that we put the voters out there.
Right.
We put them out there. Now it was up to everybody else to see how they were going to court them.
Yeah, and another thing I would say, adding on that, is one, it was really strange this past weekend when there was no activity kind of going on.
Right.
I was kind of going through withdrawals, kind of like, what do I do with myself? And I was kind of thinking, gee, I wish it was still going on. It was really weird because you put that much energy into it. And when it ends, it's kind of like a little shocking. And I'm sure it's that way for a lot of people. But at the same time, it doesn't end. If you haven't registered and you didn't vote in this election, register today before you forget.
It's never too early.
Register now. That way you'll be ready for the election. You don't need someone to reach out to you, and you can still make it happen. Get your friends registered. If you didn't like results of the election, or if you did like the results of the election, well, help secure that. Maintain it with getting more people registered to vote. You can be Latino Loud. It's about you. It's not about us. It's about you. And, we make it happen only because you make it happen. So, be an ambassador for democracy, become part of Latino Loud, be heard. We will continue the dialogue, and we want to thank you for sticking with us, and thank you for all the things that we've asked. I know that we've asked people before to do a +1, and some of you did it. And some of you meant to do it and haven't done it. Those people, you know who you are. Make it happen. Still make it happen. Let's continue this energy. Let's continue with Latino Loud, Latino Proud, Latino Empowerment. Joe Garcia, thank you to the guests, Lydia, Tony, and Rudy. Thank you guys, and we'll talk soon. I know we'll talk every day,
That's
but we'll
right.
talk soon.
Take care.
Thank you.
Sure.